virzītāji. Un tagad es vēlos dot vārdu nākamajai runātājai. Tā ir galvenā pētniece dizaina un inovāciju jomā Kārdifas Metropolitēna Universitātē. Un tā ir Vičere, Vičere. Kamēr Anna nāk un gatavojas prezentācijai, pavisam īsi pieminēšu, ka savukārt viņu mēs varēsim dzirdēt ne tikai diskusijā, bet arī 6 vakarā Rīgas IT demo centrā, kā man šeit stāv rakstīts priekšā. Tātad Anna uzstāsies ar vēl vienu lekciju. Atgādinu, ka mūs var skatīties tiešraidē Delfos, Radi Latvija LV, kā arī Rīga 2014 mājaslapā, un drīkst uzdot jautājumus arī attālināti, slēpjoties zem kāda nika, kā to mēdz saukt, vai internetu profilu, ja mēs runājam par sociālajiem tīkliem Twitteri, tikai pievienojiet mirkļbirku, jeb hashtagu Radi Latvija. Un tagad vārds Annai.
Good morning. Lovely, you can all hear me. Okay. Thank you ever so much to the organisers for inviting me as well. This is also my first time in Riga, so I'm very excited. And just to start, I have a little confession to make. I'm not a designer. And that is part of the reason why I wanted to come to talk to you today, is to talk to you the difference about design and design thinking. So designers design, but anybody, you, me, people in government, can use design thinking. And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the project that I run, which is a network of organisations across Europe encouraging government to use design thinking. So that is encouraging governments to use open methods, consultative methods, methods that put the user at the heart of public service development and policy making. So the big buzzword in Europe at the moment is innovation. Oh, sorry. There we go. Is that better? The joys of technology. Can you hear me okay? Yep, okay, great. So as I said, the big buzzword in Europe at the moment is innovation. All governments and companies want to hear about is innovation. And what I like to do is to pitch design as an approach to innovation. Innovation is changing. Innovation used to be purely about technology and research and development. But companies and governments have realized that design is actually innovation is much broader than this. Innovation is about services, it's about society, and it's about the user. And in the same way as we heard this morning from Alice that design is changing, design is also evolving. Design is no longer purely about products and technology. Design is about services and social design and user-centered design. So today I want to give you a very brief overview of what design thinking is, the link between design and innovation, why design is important, how the EU is using design and encouraging governments across Europe to use design, and why we should be using design in the public sector. So to give you a little bit of context, I run a project which is called the C Platform, and it's a network of 11 European partners, and we're aiming to accelerate the integration of design into innovation policies and programs. So that is encouraging companies to use design as an approach to developing new products, services and processes, but also getting design written into government policy. So getting governments to use design to realise their innovation priorities, but also as a methodology to actually develop policies that are fit for purpose, that correspond to user needs. So as part of the project, we've delivered workshops to over 500 public officials to get them using hands-on, design-led methods. And I think for me, the real value is seeing the kind of eureka moment. As Alice explained, it's all very well you looking at the smartphone that you've never seen before, but until you've actually used it, until you've actually experienced a design process, it's very, very difficult to understand. So as part of the project, we get policymakers to use design methods so that they can bring those kind of approaches back to their daily work. So we do these through workshops and also through generating evidence of what design can achieve. Because when I go to speak to government about design, the first question is always, what's the return on investment? If I invest this much in design, how much am I going to get back? And I think there's still a lot of work we need to do in understanding, what the value of design is. So as I said, we run hands-on workshops for policymakers to enable them to develop policies and programs for design, but also using design. So as I said, I see design thinking as a set of methods that puts the user at the heart of the process. And this can be used across the public and private sectors to develop new policies, new programs, new services, and new products. So it is as relevant to the public sector as it is to the private sector. And this is what I want to communicate to government, is that you don't have to be a designer to use design thinking. So I think the real value in design is that it intersects between lots of different disciplines. So ethnography, understanding user needs, and also understanding a system more holistically. I think the value of a design approach is that if you work in government, you have very entrenched assumptions about your policy field or about your public service. And design enables you to take a step back and to re-evaluate what the actual challenge is by really getting to grips with what the user needs are. So understanding what is at the core of the problem. So the link between design and innovation. Some research has been done by Nesta in the UK on drivers of innovation. And whereas for most governments, R&D is the big support mechanism for innovation. Governments invest heavily in R&D. But according to the research by Nesta, R&D is only the 5th biggest driver of innovation in the UK. And in fact, the biggest driver is skills and development. But importantly, and obviously the emphasis of what I want to talk to you about today, is that design is, according to them, a bigger driver of innovation than R&D. And that is because, as I said, innovation is changing. Innovation is not just about technology. It's about services, society, and people. And crucially, as I said, governments want to hear the stats. They want to hear about why design is important to companies. And the Design Council has done some research on the return on investment, and they found that if a design-aware company invests £100 in design, the return on investment will be over double. And again, design-led companies outperform other companies by over 200%. We did some research on how much the public and private sectors invest in R&D and design. Because I said there's a new model emerging. We're identifying that design is an important driver of innovation, yet governments still invest really heavily in traditional R&D support and not in design. Except in the UK, you can see that the private sector spends more on design than it does on R&D, and that's quite unique in Europe. But I think that we'll see that changing over the next few years. Design is a much more accessible approach to innovation for companies than traditional R&D. So what's the EU doing to support design? Over the last 10 years, lots of different groups across Europe have been engaging with the government, with the European Commission, to raise awareness of what design can achieve for innovation. And in 2010, for the first time, design was formally included in innovation policy across Europe, which is an amazing step. And it was also recognised quite broadly, so for transforming ideas into user-friendly products, but also for innovating private and public services, and most crucially, also for tackling challenges in society. And it's the European Commission's vision that by 2020, design should be a well-recognised element of innovation policy across Europe, at European, national and regional levels. But of course, we've still got a lot of work to do because design is not well understood by government across Europe. And that's what my project is about, trying to communicate what design can achieve to people in government. And the European Commission has recognised that design is a tool for user-centred innovation. And complementary to R&D, it can improve European competitiveness. I did a little exercise for my own amusement to see whether design is recognised in policy across Europe. I was actually surprised to see that design is included in 15 of the 27, well, now 28 EU member states. But it's in different levels. So sometimes design is purely understood narrowly in terms of industrial design and product design, but only in a few countries is design understood sort of more broadly in terms of public sector and service design. And only in a very small number of countries does design form part of different policy domains. So design for healthcare, design for transport, design for the environment. So although the picture is encouraging, there's still a lot of work to be done. So why should we be using design thinking in government? I think it's for the very obvious reasons that we've already heard about this morning, is that there is pressure on the public sector. There's less money. The public is demanding transparency and efficiency. And design is an approach to all of this, because by putting the user at the heart of the process, you're creating solutions that are desirable, creative, and viable. And what you're doing is by testing services, by testing ideas and processes with the user, you're mitigating risk. Governments often throw money at policy solutions without having tested them through iterative processes. And design is an approach to testing with the user, which means that it corresponds to user needs. So user needs are an effective route to efficiency. So by doing this, you can cut costs and mitigate risk. So if I want to give a quick example of the unemployment system, when governments develop public services or policies, it's purely based on Excel spreadsheets and number crunching and data. Whereas we all know we want policies that are based on us, on real people. So it's a totally alien concept to people in government to actually start from the point of view of a real person. So understanding what Paul's needs are. Paul is unemployed. He claims housing benefit. He cares for his 2-year-old daughter. What does a policy for this person look like? Not what does Paul as one member of a 60 million population in the UK. So what we're trying to do is to encourage governments to use design at different levels. Design has to be integrated into the mindset, integrated into the attitude of people in government. So the first step is just to use design in a one-off project, so to test design as an approach. Then I think a crucial part is education. It's getting policymakers to use design methods and to be trained in design thinking. And then only once they've been trained in design methods can they actually use design as an approach to their daily work. So using it to develop new programs, new policies, and new services. So we've produced a publication which has 12 case studies of design being used in the public sector. And I think I've hopefully got time to present to you 3 examples this morning. So one example is design being used to get people who are on long-term benefits back into work. People who run public services often have entrenched assumptions about what the barriers are to people getting back into work. They often think that there isn't a will for these people to get back into work. And so what a council in the north of England did was to hire a multidisciplinary team, including designers, to understand what the real challenges were facing people who were on long-term benefits, so long-term sick, people trying to get back into work. And what they did was they did focus groups with these people. They also traced their daily lives. They actually lived with them for the period of about a week or 2 to actually understand what the challenges were, perhaps physical challenges, but also mental challenges as well. Going through the process of literally walking into the job centre with them to understand, how the first steps of what the front face of their shop is, and to understand, how, the first step of the process. So understanding how they use the website, understanding how they use the job shop, understanding how they access different government support services, whether that's healthcare or other agencies to get them back into work. And what they found was it totally challenged their assumptions. They thought that these people were lazy and didn't want to get back into work. Of course, there may be some people like that, but they found that actually there was a huge will, a huge appetite to get back into work. But the process presented by public services was so confusing. They were being signposted to lots of different government services, and the landscape, the government support landscape, was so confusing to them that it was just a real barrier to get back into work. And so what they did was they stripped back the whole process, and they started from the beginning. So understanding every step of the process, these touch points. The touch points are what at the point where these people interact with the different government services. And although the outcome was very simple, an outcome was just a process for going through the system, like a brochure or a clear website, the outcome is not what's important here, the website or the brochure. It's the process which got to that step in the first place. And what was amazing was that they had a real cost saving for getting people back into work. A frightening statistic is that in the UK, it costs about £62,000 to get one person on long-term benefit back into work, which is absolutely horrific. I try not to think about it. But through this process, they managed to reduce the cost of getting one person back into work to £5,000, which is absolutely phenomenal. And that's a cost saving of £90,000. And those are the kind of cost savings that the public sector needs, because as we know, budgets are tightening and we don't have this kind of resources anymore. Oh no, 2 minutes, okay. I've got two other examples. I can do 1 minute for each. I want to talk to you very quickly about another program that we run called Spider, which is about communicating design to government. And we said to Cardiff City Council in the UK, please just give us 2 months of your time. What are the two biggest challenges facing Cardiff City Council? Give us 2 months to run you through a design process and convince you that design is a valuable approach. So they chose youth unemployment and the ageing population. I won't run through the process because I haven't got time, but essentially, again, design is a difficult concept to grasp, and it is only a process you can really fully appreciate if you've gone through the stages of a design process. And as crazy it may seem to put the user at the heart of the development process, this is an approach that had not been used in government before. This is something that is totally alien to them. So what we did was we held their hand through the design process, and they used these design tools and design methods to completely redesign 2 new public services for young people and for old people. And also, in parallel to that, we ran training sessions for them, so getting them to use design tools, so actually very basic tools they can bring to their daily lives and to have this kind of attitude to the other policy work that they'll be doing. A third example I want to talk about are policy labs, which are based in central government. So there are 2 examples at the moment. You might have heard of Mind Lab in Denmark, but most recently the UK Cabinet Office set up a policy lab in central government in the UK. And these are creative spaces, literally a room in government where a policymaker can come with their particular policy challenge and put the challenge on the table with a multidisciplinary team, including designers, sociologists, and other experts. And the idea, again, is that they can literally take a step out of the daily grind, as it were, and use and think outside the box, and use design methods to really understand what it is that the end person really needs in terms of using this policy. And I think that this is going to be a trend, I think, that we're going to see a lot of in the next few years. And I really hope that, I think a country like Latvia has a lot of potential to test something like a policy lab in central government, because you have a relatively small civil service, agile, something that you could really implement something like this for a 1-year pilot. So I think that if I have one message for you all today, is to try to speak to your civil servants, your people in government, to try to generate appetite for design methods in government. So thank you.